Season 1, Episode 1, The Butterfly Effect. A young man walks down the street with a duffel bag in hand. He is wearing a light brown, straight-fit flex khaki pants, a light blue button-down colored shirt with the sleeves rolled up just below his elbows, with a purple, black-gray argyle V-neck sweater vest. It's pitch black outside, and the streets are empty. Car traffic is minimal at best. The young man walks up to a building entrance. There are 2 sets of doors before entering the lobby. The first set of doors are locked. The man looks around briefly before locating the bell. He presses it 3 times. He cannot hear a sound, but anticipates that it can be heard from inside. He waits. After a minute or so, he holds the buzzer down for a second or 2. A few seconds later, a heavy-set, balding older gentleman in a white lab coat approaches the second set of doors. He has a half-eaten sandwich in his right hand and a metal clipboard in the other. He shifts the clipboard to his right hand and presses the intercom button. "How can I help you?" he asks into the speaker. "Yes, hi," the young man says politely. "I'm here to start my first day of work. I'm Jeffery." "Oh, yes, Jeffery," the man responds joyfully. "Come right in." He hits a different button that opens the first set of doors. "Sorry I've come so late at night," Jeffery laments. "It's just, I was so eager to start that I couldn't sleep, so I figured I would just come now." "Actually, you are not late," the man says. "You aren't supposed to start until Monday, so really, you are early." The man chuckles, and Jeffery chuckles awkwardly in response. "I was the same way on my first day. Well, at least I think I was. It was 40 years ago, so you'll have to excuse me if it's a bit hazy. I'm Dr. Robert Lambert, the resident medical examiner." Dr. Lambert reaches out his right hand. Jeffery reaches his right hand out and shakes the doctor's hand. "It's an honor to meet you, Dr. Lambert. Your reputation precedes you." "Well, let's get you acquainted," says Dr. Lambert. "After all, this is your new home, and you will be here more than your actual home." They walk into the lobby area past a calendar that reads December 2019, Friday the 13th. They walk through the large double doors, nicknamed the Forbidden Double Doors, because they are for morgue personnel only. The temperature drops significantly once beyond those doors. "What you got in the bag there, son?" "I brought scrubs with me." "Okay, great. Go into the back and change. There are a few white lab coats back there as well. One of them should fit you." Minutes later, Jeffery walks into the storage chamber. He is fully dressed in his scrubs, along with a white lab coat, which both fit him perfectly. There are 5 naked bodies laid out on separate metal stretchers. 3 of the decedents are men, and 2 are women. Dr. Lambert is spacing the stretchers apart as Jeffery enters. Jeffery immediately notices a wall of lockers where the dead bodies are stored, all individually numbered. He grabs a pair of plastic shoe coverings out of a box and begins to put them on, seeing as Dr. Lambert is wearing them. A half bottle of Johnny Walker Blue Label sits on the table near the doctor, along with a glass filled with some of the contents from the bottle. Dr. Lambert grabs hold of the glass and takes a swig. "One of my close friends gave me a few bottles as a retirement gift," he announces. "It's my favorite. Would you like a glass?" No, Jeffery says. "I'm good." "Good. More for me," the doctor states. "I didn't know you were coming, so I took the liberty of having a few drinks. I think I deserve it after all these years." "Mum's the word," Jeffery says, as he motions his right hand to his lips, turning a hypothetical key and simultaneously throwing it away, insinuating that he will not tell anyone. "I'm not going to bore you with details today, kid," Dr. Lambert says casually. "You come highly recommended from Dr. Bowden. He says you were top of your class during your training and fellowship. but I do have some tricks I can show you from all these years of doing this." "That would be great," Jeffrey states. "So who do we have here?" he asks, referring to the bodies. "Oh, you came on a great night. We have some doozies tonight, but we have over here—" Dr. Lambert points to the heavy-set, hairy man at the end. "One that tops them all. This guy is allegedly the most famous serial killer of all time, the Countdown Killer." "Get out of here!" Jeffrey exclaims. "I shit you not," Dr. Lambert says. "Well, they're not 100% sure it is him, but that's where we come in. We've been tasked to identify him from his dental records. He bit 2 of his numerous victims, and I personally was able to make that determination and examine those bodies. I have the markings, and if we can match them with him, then we have our guy." "Wow," Jeffrey said in amazement. "Why do they think that this guy is the killer, though?" "Have you been living under a rock for the past few days, son?" Dr. Lambert asks facetiously. "I've been so immersed in my studies and other things that I haven't been keeping up with the news," Jeffrey announces. "Well, let me tell you," Dr. Lambert states enthusiastically. "You know the modus operandi of the killer, right?" "Yeah, something about disemboweling his victims and stapling a butterfly to their tongues." "Bingo!" Dr. Lambert says as he becomes animated with hand gestures. "Well, this guy was found with the murder weapon in his hand, a bloodied knife with the victim's blood all over it. And he only got caught because he apparently died of a heart attack on the scene." "Wow. So why do they call him the Countdown Killer?" "Great question," Dr. Lambert replies. "The first victim found had the number 219 written in blood on her chest. The next victim had 218 written on his chest in blood, and so on and so forth. Instead of counting up, he counted down, all the way down to his last victim, which had the number 3 on his chest. The media figured out early on that he was counting down to 1, which would give him the highest known body count of any serial killer. The record is currently 218. But apparently, he failed because he died before he broke the record." "He must have had this whole city in fear," Jeffrey assumes. "City?" Dr. Lambert says facetiously. "Try the whole damn country. I'm surprised you haven't heard much about this. It's literally been the biggest topic in the country for some time now." "Well, thank God we got him," Jeffrey declares. "We're going to save him for last, though," Dr. Lambert explains, "because he will take the longest. So we will process the others, then work on him." "What about the other 4 decedents?" Jeffrey asks. "Do we need to perform autopsies on them, or are we just preparing them?" "There are 2 suicides," Dr. Lambert explains. "We have enough physical evidence and history that we don't need to do an autopsy. One was of natural causes, but this here, we must perform an autopsy on her." "What happened to her?" Jeffrey asks curiously. "She was murdered, and her body was found in Verona Park. We need to do a full examination of her body. Go grab yourself some gloves and a mask, and we will begin processing them." About 2 hours or so had passed. Both men are in the storage chamber. Both of their uniforms are covered in bloodstains from the close contact of the job. They are both wearing surgical masks, goggles, hair coverings, and surgical gloves at this point. They had just finished doing the autopsy on the female. Jeffrey grabs the metal handle on locker number 7 and unlocks it from left to right. He slides the metal body tray into the wall. The woman's body lies on its back, head first into the wall. The left toe has an identification tag on it, wrapped around the left big toe by a thin string. Only 2 bodies remain: the body of the alleged serial killer and the young woman found dead in the park. Jeffrey removes his surgical gloves and washes his hands and dries them thoroughly. "This work is a trip," Jeffrey says as he removes his goggles and face mask. I bet you have some crazy stories over the last 40 years. Dr. Lambert has just finished washing and drying his hands. He removes his face mask and goggles. You have no idea, Dr. Lambert asserts. What's the craziest story? Jeffrey asks. There are too many to count. But there was this one guy who died. He dressed as a clown for a living. He actually died while entertaining kids in his clown suit. He had a heart attack right there in front of the kids. The family had him buried in the clown suit that he dropped dead in. That's not that strange, Jeffrey declares. Oh, no? Dr. Lambert says. At the wake, the whole family dressed as clowns, as well as all of their friends. They even made us, the funeral directors, dressed like clowns as well. They supplied the costumes and hired a makeup person. Now, if that's not twisted, I don't know what is. Jeffrey laughs out loud. Oh, and I thought I was nuts. They both share a laugh. Bzzz. Suddenly, there is a prolonged buzzing coming from the front door. It wasn't just a courtesy buzz. It was a rude, crude, obnoxious buzz. Both men look at each other a bit puzzled as to who it could be. It's probably the fucking press, Dr. Lambert sneered. They must have found out he was brought here. Dr. Lambert leaves the room and heads for the front door. He sighs as he looks outside and sees who it is. He presses the intercom. What is it, Maggie? He asks in an annoyed tone. Is he here, Doctor? Is who here? Oh, come on. Just let me take one picture, and I'll be out of your hair, I promise, she proclaims. How the hell did you find out? Dr. Lambert asks. I have my sources, Maggie says. Yeah, I bet you do. Is anyone else out there with you? The doctor asks. Hell no, just me. I promise I'll only be a minute. Dr. Lambert buzzes her in. She is an attractive female with a long light brown trench coat on, with a white shirt and jeans. I don't want this out until Monday, you understand? Don't go pulling no bullshit on me now. I promise, Doc. I won't breathe a word of this until Monday. I owe you big time for this. Maggie walks into the prep room. Jeffrey's eyes light up. Maggie takes her coat off and drapes it over a chair. Her eyes are fixated on the body. Whoa, Jeffrey blurts out. You're Maggie London. Is that him? She says in awe, pointing at the body. I'm a huge fan of yours, Jeffrey stammers. Who the hell are you? She says dismissively. He's my replacement. I'm retiring next week, remember? Oh, well, excuse me for being so rude, Maggie says apologetically. She turns her attention to Jeffrey. I love your broadcast, Jeffrey says as he stares at her cleavage. Hey, kid, stop drooling, will ya? Dr. Lambert commands. We are going to be seeing a lot of each other over the next few years, says Maggie as she winks at him. Jeffrey lets out a smile from ear to ear. Maggie grabs her cell phone camera from her back left pocket. She steadies her camera and starts taking pictures of the body. She moves around the body, taking shots from different angles. In her haste, she accidentally gets Jeffrey in one of the shots. Jeffrey, move out of the way. You don't want to be in any of these shots, believe me, Dr. Lambert says. Oh, don't worry, handsome. I can just crop you out, Maggie says flirtatiously. Boy, this guy was a fucking monster for real, Maggie asserts. So glad this scumbag is dead. You and the rest of the city, Dr. Lambert emphasizes. Okay, would it be okay with you if we can get back to work now, doll? Lambert says sarcastically. Hey, I also heard you got the girl here that was found in the park, Maggie says. Don't push your luck, okay, Maggie? Dr. Lambert warns. Jeffrey walks Maggie to the door and lets her out. "I'll see you around," Jeffrey says. "You sure will," Maggie responds again in a flirtatious manner, as she winks at him. Jeffrey walks back into the prep room. Dr. Lambert is staring at the alleged serial killer's body. "I'm surprised that body's in such good shape, with it being 48 hours since they found him," Dr. Lambert surmises. "Yeah, that is a bit odd," says Jeffrey. "He should be more stiff and rigid." Jeffrey goes over to the corpse and bends his leg at the knee. "But he is flexible even." "Oh well," Dr. Lambert says. "He is dead nonetheless. You know, I often wonder why the guy stapled a butterfly to his victims' tongues. I think it has something to do with hope." "Hope?" Jeffrey responds, puzzled. "A butterfly is a symbol of hope, life, a change for the better. I bet he was feeling hopeless, and he felt like a loser, and took it out on the world, and saw the butterfly as a symbol of killing people's hope." "No," Jeffrey says firmly. "He did it as a symbol of the butterfly effect." "The butterfly effect?" Dr. Lambert says. "What is that?" "Well, in chaos theory, the butterfly effect says that in any system there's a sensitive dependence on initial conditions, whereas small variances in these initial conditions could have profound and divergent effects on the system's outcome. For instance, if JFK's murder was to somehow be avoided, that one event could have changed the entire world. Think of how different things would be now if that one event was avoided." "Ah, yes," Dr. Lambert pronounces emphatically. "The world would indeed be a very different place, yes. I've never heard that concept before. Very interesting. But what does that have to do with the killer?" "Well, he felt invisible in his life, that no one cared about or loved him. He likely had no family, or at best, no family that he could turn to or would listen to him. So, this was a way for him to become significant. This was a way to make himself a god even. He believed that he could change so many future events by his actions." "Well said," Dr. Lambert declares. "That's a hell of a theory, son." "In college, I majored in forensic psychology. It's always been my favorite subject." "Now let's take a quick break. I'm going to put this," referring to the metal clipboard he's holding, "in the file room. Get his file," pointing to the body. "And then we can start the autopsy on this monster and see if his organs are human or not." Jeffrey chuckles. "Okay, great," Jeffrey says. "I need to go to the bathroom." Dr. Lambert files the completed decedent's information in the file room, including all of their body identification sheets, and grabs the complete file on the alleged serial killer. He attaches it to the metal clipboard and heads back to the prep room. Dr. Lambert walks into the room. He is looking at the chart, reviewing the instructions. He lifts his head, then lowers it back to the chart. But then he raises it quickly in surprise. The metal stretcher that the alleged killer's body rested on moments earlier is now empty. "What the hell?" He whimpers and gasps. He looks around the room but sees nobody. "Jeffrey!" he shouts. "Jeffrey!" He does not get an answer. He walks into the hallway. He passes the entrances to the storage chamber on his left and the viewing room on his right. A few steps ahead, he comes to the double doors leading to the lobby, which is dark. The men's room is the first door on the left after walking through the double doors, coming from the back of the morgue. Dr. Lambert calls out again. "Jeffrey, are you in there?" But still, he receives no answer. He puts his hand on the doorknob of the men's room, but before he can turn it, he hears a noise by the coat rack station up ahead. "Jeffrey! Jeffrey!" he calls out. By now, Dr. Lambert appears a bit spooked. His heart is racing, and he is breathing heavily. Suddenly, Dr. Lambert sees a figure. "What?" Dr. Lambert says with a crackle in his voice. "What are you doing? This can't be!" he shouts. He backs up and puts his hands up. "No! No!" he screams. Slash! Slash! Dr. Lambert is slashed across the face and hands with a scalpel. He is slashed again a second time, a fraction of a second later. He hits the floor hard and awkwardly, causing a loud thud on the ground. Dr. Lambert is now at the mercy of the killer, the most heinous serial killer on Earth. He is Jack the Ripper on steroids. On Monday at 7 a.m., a woman, age 60, approaches the front door of the morgue. She pulls out a keychain with a large number of keys on it. The clanging sound grows louder as she reaches out and puts the key into the keyhole. She does so for the second door as well. She makes a right and goes through the walkway that reads "Reception" up above. She sets down her purse, removes her hat, then coat, puts her glasses on her desk, and walks over to the multiple switch grid on the wall that controls the lights to the reception, the lounge, the men's and women's rooms, and the lobby. Almost as soon as she flips the switches, she sees something abnormal. She couldn't identify it right away, but she knew it was something unusual. She squints her eyes and looks toward the floor in the middle of the lobby through the glass window in the reception area. It looks like a streak of shit, she thought at first. Dark streaks on the floor leading to the forbidden double doors. Without her glasses on, everything in the distance is a blur. Yet she had been working there for so long that only a blind person wouldn't notice this anomaly. She reaches down on her desk and grabs her glasses and puts them on her face. The whole time, she never once looks away from the lobby floor. She walks out into the lobby and over to the streak marks. It looks like blood, but she isn't sure. It wasn't so much frightening to her as it was odd. It is a morgue, after all. However, she quickly notices that someone had dragged a bloody body a long way from that location. She begins taking shallow, quick breaths. The substance was dry and crackly, almost resembling train tracks, in that the darker spots were parallel and set a fixed distance away from one another, shoulder-length apart, with the lesser amount of blood in between. She follows the tracks to the double doors. She uses her security card, which is around her neck, to open the doors. Once open, she notices that the trail continues a bit further ahead and turns into the storage chamber. She continues ahead a few yards until she comes to the storage chamber doors, which are closed. She uses her security card again to open the doors. She enters the room and sees that the trail turns left yet again. It is dark and hard to see where it ends. She removes her glasses, used for distance, and turns to her right and pushes the light switch up. Pop! The bright lights make a popping sound as they instantly light up the room. With the stark contrast between extremely dark and extremely light, it takes her a few seconds to adjust her eyesight. She puts her glasses back on and exhales deeply. She turns around and sees the blood trail end at the naked body of Dr. Lambert, seated on the floor on his backside with his back up against the wall. His clothes are in a ball near his body. His eyes are closed, and his guts are hanging out. She quickly puts her fingertips on her forehead and her thumbs on her jawline and lets out a horrific, prolonged scream. Two officers, Officer Jackson and Officer McBride, are on the scene at the morgue securing the area. Two other officers are securing the morgue just outside the front doors. Two men in dark suits enter the morgue via the front doors. Officer McBride greets them. Both men have their badges on a chain around their necks. "I'm Agent Foster, and this is Agent Nguyen," the first agent states. "What do we got here?" The black lady over there speaking to Officer Jackson is Mary Johnson," Officer McBride declares. "She's been the secretary here for 30 years or so. She claims that she left Friday at 5 p.m. and returned this morning at 7 a.m. and saw this trail of blood here. She followed it to the storage chamber and found Dr. Lambert, naked and gutted. And guess what? The body of the alleged countdown killer is missing, and Dr. Lambert has a butterfly stapled to his tongue and number 1 written in blood on his chest." "Get the fuck out of here," Agent Nguyen proclaims. "You're saying this fucking guy came back from the dead or something?" "Looks that way," Officer McBride responds. Officer Jackson comes walking over at that moment. "Did she have anything else to offer?" "Well, she said that Dr. Lambert was set to retire in 2 weeks, and that his replacement, Dr. Jeffery Corey, was supposed to start on Monday." "Is my dick supposed to get hard over this, or are you just tickling my balls?" Agent Nguyen says sarcastically. "Well," Officer Jackson says, "she checked the computer system and saw the replacement appears to have started on Friday night because his login was accessed and some information was logged under his account." "Tell her we're going to need the camera footage from every camera source," Agent Foster commands. "Then you are relieved of your duties here. This is now an FBI matter." Agents Foster and Nguyen enter the storage chamber to investigate Dr. Lambert's body. "I don't understand," Nguyen clamors. "How does he put number 1 on this guy, and there's no number 2? It makes no sense." "Maybe this new guy, Jeffery, was snatched up and taken to a different location," Agent Foster postulates. "Maybe he was killed first. Do you remember numbers 83 and 84? Right, Agent Nguyen replies. "They were both killed in the same location, but number 83 was dumped 2 miles down the road." "Exactly," Agent Foster says. "We need a full 2-mile perimeter search team. We must locate number 2 before the press does. Get the local police in on this, and keep it quiet." Agent Nguyen heads over to speak to Officer Jackson. Agent Foster's cell phone starts ringing. He pulls it from his pocket. "Agent Foster here." "It's Billings, sir." "What do you want, Billings? I'm deep in the shit over here right now." "You're going to want to hear this, sir," Agent Billings warns. "They found another body in Prospect Park. It was gutted, has a butterfly on his tongue, and has a number 2 on his chest." "Who found it?" says Agent Foster. "It was reported to the local police. They're on scene now." "Great," Agent Foster responds. "Keep the damn media away from the scene until I get there. Close off the area. No one gets in without my permission." "You got it, sir," Billings retorts. "Sir," Agent Nguyen says, "there's a man up front claiming to be Dr. Jeffery Corey." "What?" Agent Foster says, puzzled. Agent Foster and Nguyen walk up to the lobby. A man is sitting in the lounge area with glasses and dressed in a suit and tie. His hair is dirty blonde and parted to the side. He looks nothing like the man that past Friday who stated he was Jeffery. The man stands when he sees the agents approaching. "How can we help you?" Agent Foster asks. "Hello," the man says. I'm Dr. Jeffery Corey. Today was supposed to be my first day on the job here as the new medical examiner. What the hell is happening?" He is confused and bewildered by the police presence and the secrecy up to this point. "Were you here this past Friday the 13th? Agent Nguyen asks. "No," Jeffery states. "Why would I be here Friday? I was supposed to start today." "Can I see some credentials?" Agent Foster commands. Jeffery has a folder with his degrees, his driver's license, and his medical license. Agent Foster walks away for a moment with Jeffrey's information. He makes a phone call. Agent Nguyen stays with Jeffery. "Have you ever met Dr. Lambert before?" Agent Nguyen asks. "No, I was scheduled to meet him today. I know of him. I'm a huge fan of him, and I'm looking forward to his tutelage, even though it's only going to be for 2 weeks. It's going to be way less than that, actually, Nguyen says. What? Jeffrey asks. Is he here? Oh, he's here, Agent Nguyen says. Can I speak to him? Jeffrey asks. That's going to be a tough request, Agent Nguyen says sarcastically. Why is that? What's going on? Dr. Lambert was brutally murdered here on Friday, Agent Nguyen informs him. What? Jeffrey laments. His eyes well up with tears. He is frozen in shock. Agent Foster hangs up the cell phone and walks back over. Okay, he checks out. Agent Foster hands Jeffrey back his info. Can someone please tell me what's going on? Jeffrey cries. Listen, Agent Foster explains. No one knows exactly what's going on right now, but there is a murderer on the loose, and our priority is to find him. So just sit tight here for a while. We'll explain everything to you soon. I promise. In the meantime, you are going to need to sit tight. We're going to need to keep you in custody until we figure this out. Suddenly, one of the officers guarding the door walks inside and over to Agent Foster. I have a woman here who claims to have some important information for you, the officer says. Maggie comes walking over to Agent Foster. Hi, I know who you are, Agent Foster says. What do you want? This is closed to the press at the moment. I heard this man, she points to Jeffrey, outside, say he is Jeffrey and starting today. Well, I was here on Friday night. Dr. Lambert let me take pictures of the body. I promised him I would not publish until today. I saw the guy who was with Dr. Lambert, who claimed he was Jeffrey. He is not this man. I accidentally took a picture of him. Maggie shows Agent Foster the picture of Jeffrey. He calls Agent Nguyen over furiously. I want to know who this guy is. Now! Agent Foster shouts. Over at Prospect Park, the police had just started to secure and cordon off the area around the body. A crime scene truck just pulled up. 2 police officers are near the victim. The body was found in the park, right by the entrance. A street with high traffic runs right past it. The body is in plain view of anyone driving by. The back of the victim's body is up against the park bench that is a few feet from the sidewalk. The body is the overweight man that was in the morgue that was thought to be the serial killer. He is naked, just as he is in the morgue. He was also gutted. There is a butterfly stapled to his tongue and number 2 written on his chest. A red SUV is the last vehicle allowed to drive past the scene. 2 police cars on each side are simultaneously blocking off the area. The man in the red SUV is the imposter Jeffrey, the preppy man who posed as Jeffrey on Friday the 13th. He drives slowly past the scene, staring at the body. He slows down and lowers his sunglasses to get a better look, never coming to a full stop. He raises his glasses, continues past the next roadblock that has just been set up. He scratches his right arm where he has a tattoo of a butterfly with fangs and the words, "The Butterfly Effect," written by it. He reaches over to the passenger seat and picks up a magazine that has Maggie's picture on the cover. He stares at it for a second, then puts it back down and speeds off.